wat le minis filu cheist na Palestine, agus an tar brúdúil, marfach atá siúil, agus atá muidna I man cancha an seo. Agus rinnemar an cinenne ceart an dar lá fihid den bhí seo caite nuair a thugmar ahantas don stát, mar stát neamhsplach an Palestine, agus í an cheiste níos cadíd na céimena eile, agus tá prán le céimena eile. I'm going to return to the question of Palestine, where genocide continues as we sit here peacefully speaking in this Parliament. And I say that with the greatest of respect to the government of Israel and to the Jewish population, that they are carrying out a genocide. We took the right step on the 22nd of May in 2024 when we recognised Palestine. But for that decision to have meaning, we now need to take further steps. And clearly Israel and the army and the government is out of control. They simply know no bounds and they're not listening to anyone. And I say that in the context of the facts today. More than 37,202 Palestinians have been killed, with nearly 85,000 Palestinians injured. I also acknowledge that 1,200 Israelis have been reported killed and nearly 5,500 reported injured. 17,000 children are now known by a number of letters. Wounded child with no surviving family. 70,000 units have been destroyed. 1.7 million people in Gaza displaced. The facts are important. It's important to let them out in view of the propaganda and the narrative that's going out from an Israeli ambassador and Israeli spokespeople. The UN Food and Agricultural Organization has said that 1 million Gazans face death and starvation by next month, by mid-July. 100% suffer from trauma and depression. 8,000 children under 5 have received treatment for severe malnutrition. And I could go on with the amount of aid workers and journalists that have been killed. But what I want to focus on in my last few seconds is, Taoiseach, what steps are you now going to take to give a reality to the recognition of Palestine as an independent state? And the first one, of course, is to stop the travel of American soldiers and arms through Shannon. That's the most basic step we need to take. We need to end the dual export, the dual use goods, which have increased by tenfold in 1 year. Exports from this country for dual use. We need to enact the Occupied Territories Bill. And in relation to the EU-Israel Association Agreement, why haven't we acted on that and the humanitarian clause as a basic step, Taoiseach, as basic as inspecting the planes going through Shannon? They're basic steps if we're to give substance to the recognition that we gave a few weeks ago to Palestine.
Thank Deputy Connolly for raising this issue. I spoke yesterday to President Biden and spoke specifically on behalf of Ireland about the importance of an immediate ceasefire. The President agreed that there was a need for a two-state solution. I think he said that in his readout of the call. And my question to everybody is, what more can we do to bring about the circumstances where a ceasefire can be achieved? Because I genuinely believe the first thing that has to happen is there needs to be a cessation of violence. Because as recently as yesterday, the 17th of June, we saw as many as 17 Palestinians killed in Israeli strikes on a refugee camp in central Gaza. I'm aware of the reports of yet further strikes on refugee camps. And we need an immediate and a permanent ceasefire to create the environment in which we can work towards the two-state solution. And that's the first thing Ireland is continuing to do in every international fora, at every opportunity, with every world leader. And we did it again as recently as yesterday. I also welcome the publication of the report by the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and Israel. And the report does assert that there have been grave violations of human rights and of international humanitarian law. And there has to be full accountability for all civilian deaths and for all crimes that have been committed. And we will continue to support at a time when other countries haven't always. we will continue to support the International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, and we've done that through additional funding as well. Our position on the association agreement at an EU level remains clear. I articulated it to a number of European counterparts as recently again as yesterday, and I will continue to do it next week at the formal European Council. I believe that it is really unacceptable that a trade agreement that is in place that has human rights clauses hasn't been reviewed. That is the position of Ireland, it's the position of Spain, and we continue to try and grow support for that at an EU level. And I think there's been some encouraging signs of that recently with the Belgian presidency now calling an association agreement review meeting as well. In relation to dual-use goods, Ireland operates a robust framework for regulating the export of dual-use goods, and the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment is the national competent authority. All export licence applications are considered in criteria set out within the relevant dual-use regulations and in line with Ireland's international obligations, and we operate a rigorous export control system, and we will continue to do so as well. I think it's been extraordinary that in the last 24 or 48 hours we've seen Ireland's decision, along with Norway and Spain, to recognise the state of Palestine being used as some sort of peculiar justification, a pathetic justification really, for the illegal settlements in the West Bank and the determination of the government of Israel to do more in that space. And I think what that should tell us, Deputy Connolly, though, is that the recognition of the state of Palestine is not seen as something merely symbolic or inconsequential, but is actually seen as something quite significant in terms of speaking up and speaking out for the state of Palestine. So we continue to do all that we can in every fora that we can. On the occupied territory, I'll come back in a moment. Sorry.
When you were speaking to President Biden yesterday, did you ask him to stop the export of arms that's responsible for the genocide in Palestine? Did you ask him to take action in relation to that? The previous Taoiseach wrote to van der Leyen back in February in relation to the EU-Israeli agreement. Nothing has happened since. Directly wrote to van der Leyen, no response, and yet this government and you are going to vote for van der Leyen. You're going to continue to support her. I understand Fianna Fáil have a little more sense and mightn't be supporting her election. But you're actually going to support van der Leyen, who stood shoulder to shoulder with Netanyahu, who's now the subject, along with his government, of the International Criminal Court inquiry into plausible case of genocide. There's an arrest warrant sought, and we're still waiting on the answer whether the arrest warrant is going to be granted in relation to Netanyahu, amongst other people. And van der Leyen has stood shoulder to shoulder with him, has expressed no regret in relation to that, while arms from Europe, from our own country, Germany, from France, and from America, amongst other countries, are responsible for the genocide that's happening while we sit here and calmly and coolly talk. Taoiseach, talk is over. It is time to take action. The various bills that are going through the Dáil, one since 2018 from Senator Black, not followed. The dual purpose goods, if that's robust and rigorous, I really tremble if that's the same robust and rigorous inspection that's going on in Shannon in relation to inspection of planes.
Taoiseach, to conclude, please.
So I think when it comes to President von der Leyen, I think there's a serious misrepresentation of her view in this country by some. Some for political gain during the European elections. And I attended the European Council last night with 26 other Prime Ministers and Presidents, and I haven't heard in the ether any country within the European Union actively propose another name for President of the Commission. President von der Leyen hasn't gotten everything right, but President von der Leyen has shown leadership in relation to humanitarian aid, has shown leadership in relation to UNRWA, has clearly called for a ceasefire. And I think sometimes it's convenient to blame President von der Leyen for other things. It is a matter for member states of the European Union, to stand up and be counted when it comes to the association agreement. We have, Spain has, Belgium has made progress. It's not a competency of the President of the Commission, it's of the member states. In relation to the arrest warrant, or any arrest warrant, this country will always comply with international courts in relation to these issues. And in relation to Shannon and other airports, no airport in Ireland or Irish sovereign airspace is being used to transport weapons to the conflict in the Middle East. In 2023 and to date this year, no application has been received, nor has any exemption been granted for the carriage of weapons on civil aircraft to Israel. And any such application, if received, would be refused.